got five stories to tell. I see both sides like Chanel. See on both.
Hey guys, and welcome back to an Industry Leader interview. It's an absolute pleasure today to do an interview with Miss Becky Boyd. It's going to be really interesting because we're going to be. I've done sort of digital marketing interviews, but I haven't actually focused it on social media yet. And social media is a big part of my space, so I really want to dive into I'm just going to put every question based on social media and really get to grips rather than just giving generalized answers. We're going to really get to grips on social media, understanding how it works, the misconceptions of it, and sort of whether every business actually needs it. Because I think obviously with millennials pushing the whole social media game out there, and with so many agencies, it can be very confusing with understanding which agency to go with. Is it right for your company? So we're going to really dive into that and really understand, is social media worth it for your brand and your company? So Becky, I'll leave it to you to introduce yourself, as I know you've got your social media geek. I'm not calling her a geek, by the way. She has a very good website called Social Media Geek. Mm-hmm. So do you want to do a bit of an introduction on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So hi guys, thank you for having me with you guys today. So I run my own business called the Social Media Geek. So I do a whole array of digital marketing, but social media is really kind of what I love. It's what I love doing. So it's kind of my specialism, really. So I help businesses with managing and understanding what they should be doing with their social media, whether it be on a consultancy basis, or I help them actually get to grips and manage their accounts for them. And with that, I also do a lot of training as well. So it's all about making sure people have the right skills and the confidence to do whatever it is that they want to do with social media. On top of that, I also am a digital garage trainer for Google. I can probably talk a bit about that at the end, really, can't I? About getting free digital skills as well for your business. So
yeah, and it's really good. I've actually been to a talk you've done, and I've been to other talks. They're really useful, and I've been to the headquarters. It's very useful, digital garage. I'm going to touch on that in the questions as well. So I'm going to start off right off the bat. Start with more sort of people who don't believe in social media and don't believe in the fact is, do you believe every business, and I know that means a lot of industries, a lot of different areas, do you believe every business needs social media in their company?
I think pretty much most businesses will find a good use for it. If not all businesses will be able to find a place for it within their business. Now, this is not me saying that if you have a business, you have to be on social media. It's your business at the end of the day, and you can do what you want. But it's very easy to see how you can grow your business using social media. There's so many people that are using it to replace search engines, for example. It makes sense to be on it nowadays. So if you're not currently on social media, I think as a business, you'll probably find that you'll get in touch with the audience and actually find new customers much easier by being on social media. So it really just makes good sense. Yeah,
and I think that sort of going on to the other one is, how do you convince people who just don't accept social media as an integral part of business now? I think you kind of touched on it there, was it just allows your brand to have a personality. No matter what it is, it allows some sort of personality, it allows you to connect, it allows a nice human place rather than customer service, but more of a fun place to communicate and connect.
It does. I mean, it gives you the opportunity to be able to talk directly with your customers anyway. So you're able to find out information that would probably, say 10 years ago, would take you weeks to find out. So for example, if you wanted to bring a new product to market, if you wanted to get that tested out and see what your customers thought, you'd have to organise a focus group, you'd have to get feedback,
so true.
Then you have to go away and make those changes, and then do the whole process all over again. So with social media, you can put your product out there and ask people for instant feedback. So that's just one of the ways that you can apply social media to see how you can talk and interact with your customers. On the other end of it, particularly for those ones who feel very skeptical about being on social media, I don't want to pick on anyone, but usually the accountancy companies or the solicitors of the world, I think, well, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to be on social media, but I completely disagree with that idea. Social media plays a huge part in how you appear on Google, particularly with Google search. And if you know that your website isn't necessarily up to scratch, or it's not performing as well as it could be on social media, and people are Googling you and your business just isn't coming up with its website, social media can very easily fill that gap and very quickly within a matter of a couple of weeks for you. So even if you don't see your customers being the most interactive on social media, it still comes with its own SEO or search engine optimization benefits as well.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, is obviously how expensive websites can be these days. it's free. It's anyone can set it up. There's no charge to it, so it just gives a discoverable platform for
very much so.
business.
And there's a lot of, we're talking about the whole idea of millennials nowadays. I was doing it earlier today. I was looking at solicitors for my own personal needs, and I was looking on Google and just looking at reviews that people had left for them, and I was using that as a bit of a weighting. Which solicitor do I choose? So it does add to people's perception of you, and it also can weigh heavily on whether or not they choose to go with you or not. If everything else is lining up, if you're very much the same as your competitors, how your online presence looks could actually be in part of that weighting nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's huge with the sale. I think it's got a huge influence. Absolutely. So what do you believe is, so obviously, again, being a millennial, it's very easy. I think sort of big issues, sort of a lot of social media agencies popping up is we do sort of feel entitled like we're experts because we go around, which is, I know it's just rubbish, but would you say is the quickest way for someone to learn social media, like really learn it, to be able to not just build a funnel but actually gain sales? Is there like courses you'd pay for, or is it just blogs you'd read? Is there sort of some quick, cheap ways?
Well, the thing is, I get referred to as a social media expert all the time, which kind of makes me laugh a little bit because, there are people out there who just set up a social media account for their, at-home business that they've only just started, and out of nowhere they'll have a massive following. Yeah. And, I may even struggle to kind of help them do that if, just as a so-called expert. And I'm a big believer that business owners are actually experts in their business, and kind of that's where it comes from. The practicalities which is what I do, anyone can learn. So it doesn't mean you have to spend loads of money on an expensive course to learn. There's lots of free tools out there. So I'm very much an advocate of going away and really having a go yourself, so you have an understanding of what you could potentially be paying a company to do for you. I've been engaged many times by startup companies who want to kind of engage in my services. And, besides the fact that, they might not necessarily have the budget, I'm very keen for them to go and try it for themselves a little bit, because there's probably lots of stuff they could be doing themselves, which me, being someone that's not actually in their industry, could they could achieve much quicker than I could. Whereas I can come in later on and help boost and give them a full strategy and help them see, through the trees, so to speak. So I'm a big believer in trying out all these free tools that are given to you before you actually pay out anything. Very much so.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a good point you make. At the end of the day, you're going to have the guidance, the expert knowledge of building social media, but you won't have the expert knowledge of whatever these other companies are.
Yeah, very much so. And I think every business is different, so therefore your customers are always very different. So I'm now starting to impose more of a rule for myself of, unless I can actually get into the business, understand them, and sit down with the business, I can't work with them, because I feel this nowadays, with how social media is getting so competitive, particularly, you can't just put out anything anymore and expect just a random article and suddenly get lots of likes and lots of feedback from it. It has to be really personable, and it has to be really authentic, and it's hard to do that, as a large company, going in to pretend to be that you're another company. It's really hard to do. I'm not saying that you can't do it, it's just incredibly difficult. So for me personally, I like to work on a one-to-one level basis with my customers, just because I feel like they get more out of it. And they're able to learn as well alongside me, rather than me just going off in secret and doing something, and then they might see some results. So
I think that's so important, is allow you to learn for the stage and allow them, because there's a lot of things they can start implementing and they can put ideas to. I think it's really important for them to be able to do that. And obviously, you don't want to just be throwing money at things that you don't necessarily know what's happening with it. You want to see understand what's happening.
Very much so. And I think it's key there as well. There are some things that companies could be helping you with. Like I'm getting asked to do more and more campaigns, as I refer to them. So when someone says we have a new product launch or we have a new event, can you come and help be an extra pair of hands, or give us some insight how we can structure that to get maximum exposure. So that's where kind of I'm finding myself being, and I think agencies are now finding themselves more into that sphere as well, because it's hard to manage an account full time when you don't do that job full time. So coming in and getting a fresh pair of eyes on a campaign can sometimes be a really good idea though.
It's interesting. That's quite a big learning curve for myself, because I manage a lot of accounts, and I can see what you mean. It's very difficult when you've got different industries. It's very difficult to have the knowledge of those industries. I have limited knowledge of loads of different interests, it is quite key. Maybe going to more of a consultancy aspect, which is, I'll look into that for sure. Thank you. So obviously that's the quickest way to learn, is really just get hands on practical. I think that's always just taking action, just going out, there's tons of blogs and just taking action on it. So what are your 3 tips on building an online presence then, building a following? I mean, everyone's got sort of the little tricks on different social media platforms, but at the end of the day, I think it still does come down to some core things among all platforms, no matter what platform. So what are sort of your top sort of tips on that?
So my top tip would always be, have a really good think about what your brand will look like online. How do you want to be represented? So do you want to go in being kind of the fun, jokey kind that can have a bit of a laugh with your customers? Do you want to be coming across as kind of, we are very professional, we're super serious, but you're going to get absolutely fantastic customer service from us if you have any question, because we're like a fountain of knowledge. Or, do you want to go for kind of more, we're the grassroots supportive kind of people? So, there's lots of different ways that you can be bringing your brand tone to the table. So I would say that's really important to get across when you first get started, because that's going to have a knock-on effect to all of your imagery, how you speak across social media. So it's worth getting that down to begin with. Secondly, I would say, have fantastic content. So there's probably lots of things that, when you Google online now, how do I get more followers? And always at the top, it always says, great content, which, there's no way around it. If you want people to follow you and you want them to listen to you, you have to give them a reason to do so. 100%. So really think about, what could I be providing to my audience that they're not getting anywhere else? So it could be that, for example, you're creating great videos where you're sharing knowledge with them, or perhaps you're creating quick, kick-ass articles which kind of gets information across really quickly. Whatever your customer would like, however they would like to absorb that content, really think about what they would like to get from that. And finally, have a look at your analytics. I think most businesses or most people trying to get started in social media, they get really kind of thrown because they just start putting out random content, see what works, but then forgetting to check actually what's happening out the back of that. So, for example, I worked with one business that was really confused because they weren't really getting anyone's interest, but they would have a certain, they would have a lot of likes and a lot of engagement at a certain point in the day, but then no one was buying their products. And I had a look, it's like, well, you're posting exactly at the right time for Argentina to wake up. So, their content was great and it was really appealing to that market. It's like, well, if you're getting that audience, make sure you can either sell to them or you're going to have to readjust when you're going to be posting all kinds of content you're posting. So for them, it was just an easy case to realigning what they were doing. But because they hadn't actually looked at their analytics, they didn't know what was going on and why it was happening. So do really get familiar with kind of your Facebook analytics, Twitter analytics. Instagram doesn't quite really have any analytics right now.
They're okay.
But there are third-party software that you can invest in. If Instagram is a big part of your digital marketing, it's well worth the investment just to get that information back. Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's a key one that I think most people don't do. They focus on the good content, which is brilliant, absolutely having great content. The analytics side, I think once numbers come into people's heads, it's like, whoa, get away from it, it's numbers. That's sort of what put me off. I always knew it was important, but what sort of put me off at the start was just seeing all these graphs and it was like, whoa, I can't learn. But then you realise.
I always say there's only kind of 4 stats that you need really. Followers, which I think everyone knows what followers are now. Impressions, which is how many times was your content seen. Reach, which is how many people saw your content, which is different to impressions. So make sure you don't get those two mixed up. And then clicks, so how many people are kind of taking action or going through. And as long as you're just keeping an eye on maybe those 4 stats, that will actually tell you what's going on within your social media. So don't get overwhelmed by numbers.
Don't get overwhelmed, because there's lots in the Google Analytics. And for social media, I find Hootsuite, they actually have quite a surprisingly good analytics. Yes, they do. They have quite a lot of info going on in there. Yeah, Hootsuite, and that is a free platform, guys. So go get that. I would really urge for that, and that's all for all the platforms as well. Okay, so this is a bit of a funny question that I like to ask with your social medias. Would you buy followers? Because I always have brands that come to me about them. Would you buy followers?
No.
What do you reckon?
I personally would say if you're ever given the option to buy followers, I would say don't.
Yeah.
Just try and resist the temptation. I know it may seem really difficult because you may feel like I'm just kind of banging my head against a brick wall. The problem is, as soon as you buy followers, one, it's against many of the different platforms' terms and conditions. So if Facebook or Twitter or Instagram catch you, you could either potentially lose all those followers anyway that you paid for, because they're usually fake accounts or they're not real people. Or, worst case scenario, get booted off the platform. So it's really not worth it just for that reason alone. Other than that, there's also, I would say, it does have an effect on your SEO. So how you actually appear on Google and how you appear and get referred to by other users. Okay. So, for example, if you're, it all comes down to analytics, really. Yeah. So if you consider your followers as doing that, but they're not real people, so they're not actually engaging with your content. So what's going to happen is your engagement and your click-through rate is going to do that. So what Twitter or Facebook sees is that no one's engaging with this content or this account. It must be rubbish account. So we're not going to recommend or suggest you to anyone else, or even perhaps allow people that have followed you who are genuine followers to see your content, because overall, people aren't engaging with your content, so it can't be very good. So that as well is going to be going to have a massive knock-on effect to your social media. So just don't.
It's a funny one. I wanted to ask you because whenever I go with brands, it usually comes up with most brands that don't know social media, and sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't. It's kind of a hard sort of conversation to have because some brands just won't accept it, like no. Yeah. And it kind of is like when they're launching a product, they don't want to launch with 5 followers. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it just damages, and you don't know who you're promoting to, and it just gets confusing if you're trying to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very. People nowadays, they know you can buy followers, and all it takes is just a few seconds for them to click through and have a quick scroll through your followers.
Yeah, it's so obvious.
It's
when
so
just
obvious.
The blank images, isn't it? It's so
very much so. And your competitors will know, because I mean, I did it recently with one of my clients who I spotted one of their competitors had suddenly rocketed up in followers.
That's the thing.
And then,
spike.
Well, it was really funny because we started taking over them, but we had genuine followers, so we took over them. And then a day later, they suddenly had more followers than us. And then again, it became a little bit of a game for them. And then one day, like a week later, I went on, they suddenly had 2,000 more followers. I was like, well, that's just cheating.
Yeah, it's just...
We're not playing anymore, are we? So yeah, just don't fall into the trap, because it's just not worth it.
Yeah, just don't fall into the trap. Yeah, it's about, I think a big part of social media is, even with great content, I think there's still a grind aspect of it. There is still a huge grind aspect. Like, yes, there are some sensations that do blow up very quickly.
Yeah, and I think people get really misled by that, because it's like, oh, well, this person now has 5 million followers in a week. And those situations are so rare. It really is so rare. And often, if you think about it, if you suddenly had 5 million followers that all wanted to buy, is your business prepared to be able to cope with that volume? No. So it's a kind of a case of be careful what you wish for, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's interesting. And so obviously when you do increase the following, you increase your content, your daily content what are sort of tools and software would you recommend for start a business when it comes to social media?
Well, I always recommend having a look at, just to ease your load of work as well. Is it worth kind of using some kind of social scheduling software? So something like Hootsuite or Buffer. So for those things that are, non-time specific, and where you don't necessarily need to be there to post, or they're evergreen content, so to speak, you can schedule them up in advance, and it allows you just that flexibility of time to be able to get on with servicing your customers. When it comes to actually creating content, I recommend things like Canva. So it's like Canvas, but without OBS. It's a great tool.
It's a really good tool.
So basically, if you want beautiful imagery, for Instagram or Twitter, whatever, you can create, an image that fits the exact dimensions that those social media accounts need, and it's all click, drag and drop, and it's free. So I definitely have a look at that one. What else is there? There's things like follower wonk if you want to get more follower wonk. I don't make those names. Follower wonk lets you find out more about your Twitter followers, like where they're based, what interests them, and kind of what authority do they have in themselves. So it lets you identify your influencers there as well. But there's always new tools coming up, so I highly recommend just kind of having a bit of Google what's the latest tools, because there's going to be so many things, and it just depends on what you want to achieve with your social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big one for me was scheduling software. And what's your views on scheduling? Because obviously, you could say, oh no, you need to be present and obviously in sync. I think there's still ways of being in sync with trends if you're just getting, let's say, a week, 2 week in advance. But would you urge most people on social media to start scheduling stuff?
I would look at kind of what your workload is like, and if you're finding kind of social media is becoming a little bit of a chore, it's becoming a bit of a time drain on you, or you're one of those people that can spend 3 hours on Facebook and realise I've not got anything done.
That's definitely
so it's probably worth doing that. Facebook are now actually starting to allow you to schedule within the platform itself, and some have found that actually they're getting more engagement and more visibility by scheduling directly with the
I have heard that.
It's one of those things Facebook's not admitting right now.
I've seen some blogs that have argued it, but it's an interesting one, that,
So I'd recommend scheduling some things if you can, even if it's just to do with sales or promotions, because that's just going to help lighten your load. So when you do find something that really excites you or intrigues you or something you do want to share, you can still do that in the moment. There's nothing to stop you from kind of like splitting your time up.
Yeah, even though your structure doesn't mean that you can't just throw past that as and when.
Exactly, yeah.
And how regularly would you say you should be posting that content? Is that... is it very different?
It is very different, and it very much depends on what your customers want to see from you. And I always recommend testing the waters. So some people will start switching off if you're posting too much. Others will start switching off if you post too little. So it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, really. So I always say something like, have a look at kind of your customers. How often and how much time do they spend on those platforms? And think about how quickly does that content get consumed. So, for example, Twitter, it's something ridiculous like 10,000 tweets per second.
Yes.
It's insane. So you can schedule up a few things, or you can post a few times throughout the day. And I don't think anyone's going to be, oh, you're posting so much stuff, it's always on my feed. Because it just kind of falls off the feed so quickly. So that is going to be fine. If you wanted to post 10 times a day, I don't think, as long as it was appropriate and varied content, I don't think it would mind too much. Facebook's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, I find, because people use Facebook for personal reasons, and if they're following you, it's kind of their own personal space. And on top of that, Facebook are also prioritizing how people see their feed now as well, more and more. So it's well worth making sure that the content that you're putting out on Facebook, even if it's just once a day, maybe once every other day, again, depends on how often you think your customers will want this information. It needs to be fantastic, really great content. Whereas Twitter, like I say, it's conversations, it can just be out there and gone. Facebook, you kind of really need to put a bit more effort, a bit more thought into it. And also think about how can you get people to engage or see themselves in that post as well. Absolutely. So there's two different approaches.
Absolutely, platforms. It does vary. I do understand that Twitter is just such a noisy platform, and I think the key thing that you mentioned with good content is, yes, you might do regularly, but at the end of the day, you've got to maintain that quality.
Yes.
Don't just post, I've got to post today. I think that's a really key one to mention, is you've got to maintain that quality, otherwise I think it damages it. So absolutely, that's interesting. And it's sort of a big one from, even I really want to understand this, is I know there's this whole thing of monetizing platforms, and people say, how do you monetize? Is monetize a real thing? And it's like, at the end of the day, if you're a beauty brand, you're building up a following on an account, you want to obviously get them into sales. So what are your sort of tactics to engaging this platform, following on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, into an actual sale? What sort of the right strategy? Is always quite a complex question.
It can be, because it just depends on the business. Because obviously, a beauty brand may find, a conversion, so to speak, from getting a customer to who's never heard of a brand, right through to getting them to buy there and then online, that can be a very quick and easy process depending on their customer. Whereas if you say, if you're giving, looking at accountants, for example, the process in which someone will have never heard of them, going from have never heard of this business right through to, well, I'm going to book a meeting and purchase with them, is a very different process. So it's about understanding your customers and understanding what's their ability to be able to buy now or shop now. So, for example, if you're looking at products, for example, whether it be in the beauty industry, it could be a case of, you put out a great video showing how to use the product, or a unique way someone has styled, using their beauty product, like say for mascara, eyeshadow, this is a cool way that someone's used that product. And it's on a great deal here now, buy it today. So you're showing them, and you're kind of showing the product in action. You're perhaps using an influencer who can help them make that decision, that can convince them without selling too hard. And that's kind of a key point I find with social media. People don't like to be sold to.
It's a social platform, not an advertising platform.
So always think about showing rather than just selling. Even the products on Amazon, which have kind of gone viral, just like the strapless bra, or some odd products. Usually, they will be shown on Instagram in a video. This is how you use it, and people will see that and think, "Oh yeah, that's interesting." Buy just because I'm interested. It's weird. Whereas with kind of perhaps accountancy firms or B2B businesses, there will be a much longer process in which you'll need to show that you're experts in your field, that you care about the same things that your customers care about, and there'll be a lot more of a process of showing, your expertise and showing that you do what you do the best in the industry, rather than here's a quick video and expect them to call you immediately. It's just very different audiences.
Yeah, for sure. But at the end of the day, I think the key thing is that there is opportunities, strategies that can be implemented to take this following into a sale of some sort. Absolutely. And I think that's the key thing to people who are a bit sort of hesitant with social media, is there is a gain from it. It's not just a grind of making your brand look beautiful.
Very much so, and I think it's well worth, again, a prime example that I gave to someone recently is that, if you are one of those B2B businesses where you think, oh, this is such a long game, is it even worth me going through social, and word of mouth is doing so much better for me right now. And, social media is a newer word of mouth. The millennials, keep using that phrase, the millennials don't necessarily like to send an email, or they don't like to actually pick up the phone because it feels too formal. It feels like if I'm wasting your time if I'm not purchasing from you. So being able to send a quick message on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, that's a far more accessible route for many people. So even if it's not a direct sale, you're building up your expertise and your brand personality, your space in your local area, and you're giving people another opportunity to be able to get in touch with you with any quick questions that they have.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's quite funny you mentioned that calling millennials. I saw a funny meme of just when friends were chatting and then they called and they were like, "Why are you calling?" It's just suddenly,
what are you doing?
It's just like, no, you're not supposed to do that. And I can so resonate with that.
What was it? It was a community program. It's just like, the phone is ringing. Wait, she was born in the 80s. She still uses a phone as a phone. So, the best quote, I thought.
It's just funny how we have these phones, but we just don't want to pick it up. No. It's a strange process our minds, right, to think. But anyway, so sort of an interesting question I want to ask, and I asked this in my last interview actually, because I think it's quite key to understand this, is what do you think is the current big misconception of social media right now?
I think there's a misconception about how it's growing and what it's doing to people generally, because I think you hear a lot of bad things in the news about cyberbullying, people having rough time on social media with it to do with being trolled and things. And again, like those situations where it goes viral, I think we need to remember that that isn't always the case, that there are some really great aspects of social media and we don't necessarily have to forget them. Like, for example, more people are on social media who have disabilities. There's more representation for those groups now, and there's more opportunity for people to kind of share and connect as well. So I think that that we're all going to be glued to our phones, that we're also never going to want to talk to each other. I think that's a misconception itself.
Yeah.
I think social media is never necessarily going to replace us wanting to talk to each other.
Yeah.
I think it's going to probably make us more selective about who we want to talk to. But I think it's not going to do away with human interaction completely.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I don't think it'll completely eradicate human interaction, but it's sort of moving on to my next question as well. Is I think there's just more technology is going to come in. It's going to be more interactive. When VR actually kicks off in years' time, it's just going to be. Are we just going to be more and more and more glued? Because at the end of the day, that's what they're trying to make, is just make a platform that engages more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And what scares me is the effects on sort of mental health and physical health. Is if you're on your laptop or on your phone 18 hours a day, it's really not going to be good. So what are your views on, because obviously we're both in the social media space and we love it.
Yeah.
But I'm still aware of the ethical side of mental health and physical health.
I mean, very much so. I mean, talking, firstly on physical health, I mean, my neck and back is screwed up. But that's from me being sat at a desk 8-9 hours a day. But as a result of that, I'm now very much aware of it. I'm now having to take steps to look after my health a bit more. Yeah. So for me, and I think perhaps for a lot of people, they're going to have to start looking more closely at their own physical health, which I think only seems strange because I don't think we've ever had to do that. So I think going forward, I think we're going to have to be putting more effort into making sure that we're healthier and that we're actually getting away from our laptops and that we're considering, back, neck, shoulders health as well, and eye strain as well. Both of us wearing glasses, obviously. We're not off to a good start. But I think there's going to be more emphasis on that. But as a result, and this is going to sound ridiculous, there will be more technology that will be created to enable us to do that. I mean, standing desks, for example, that's a huge thing now, and they're becoming standard in some countries. I was going to say, standing desks, for example, in some countries it's a standard thing to have a standing desk at your work. In some places they say you have to have them. So there are looking at different ways in which we can start looking at our physical health. From a mental health point of view, again, we're the first generation that's had to deal with this. And we're having to figure out as we go, because there's so much about mental health that we don't really know, and this is opening up whole new studies, whole new look at how we perceive ourselves in the outside world. And I don't think it's going to be as dystopian as I think a lot of people think it is. I don't think we're going to have any Black Mirror situations, thankfully. But I think it is definitely having an effect on a lot of young people, how they perceive themselves and their own self-confidence. And I think there's going to have to be an re-evaluation of how schools and parents deal with that, and how they approach social media, particularly with their children. I hope to be a mum one day as well, so I'm already thinking, oh God, how am I going to talk to my kids about what they should and shouldn't do on social media, when I know they're not going to listen to me. But that's the point, that so schools are going to have to look at how can they bring in, as part of education, not only from a self-esteem point of view, but for a safety point of view as well, what is safe and what isn't safe. But we're panicking about all these things now. There's lots of other technology that has occurred that we all assumed, well, this is going to completely cause social decay, and it hasn't.
It's so true,
It's just, we're just going to have to evaluate how do we pass it on this information so people don't become glued to it. Actually, video games, for example, is probably a prime example of that. There's a point in the 90s where it's like everyone's going to be glued to playing video games, or everyone's become hyper violent because of video games. Admittedly, we all now play mobile games, but we're not society's not going to break down.
No, it's not going to break down.
But we are having to evaluate how we cope with it. So I think that's kind of my point of view on that.
Yeah, no, I think you're true. We are almost like the guinea pigs growing up with it. And I think in the next 5-10 years, there's going to be a lot around this. There'll even be companies that will be focused on dealing with the effects of social media and stuff, and will adapt.
Very much so. And I think there's a big push on digital skills. And, personally, I keep saying that digital skills need to be started at primary school level, just to get kids familiar with coding and understanding how the internet actually works. And I think there's going to be an even more push for that over the next 10 years. So I
think it's really hard to argue not to that, because, at the end of the day, internet, with you, it is like it is such an integral part of life.
It is.
Anything, even not work, from pleasure, from ordering things, it's so involved in our lives every single day. So it's kind of like, I don't think there's really an argument not to do it.
No,
really.
It's just a question of making sure that the teachers know what to teach. Really.
Yeah,
and that's probably that's the barrier I think at the moment. And how do we fit that into schools so it can be taught? So.
Absolutely. And sort of just to wrap up, because I know I've taken a lot of your time. I don't want to take any more of your time.
Sorry for waffling.
No, it's me. I'm getting fascinated because the good things from these interviews is it's not just there. I actually learn a lot, and I love that because it's like almost like free consultation. So I really do enjoy just throwing more questions in there. Now I'm just going to I like to always finish off with sort of futuristic things. What do you believe is sort of the future of social? I guess we did just discuss it on the health side, and I guess it's quite an open question. But do you think sort of the future of social media, whether sort of maybe new technology or?
Yeah, I mean, VR, virtual reality is already playing such a huge part of it, and looking at how can we start integrating other experiences in the real world, whether it be through VR into social media. I mean, Snapchat is a good example about how things are quickly moving. Yeah. But then the perception of how those companies operate is also changing. So, for example, Snapchat, they don't want to be a social media company. They say they're not a social media company.
Really?
They claim to be a camera company.
Okay, did know.
Yeah. So it's how companies perceive themselves and the technology in which they're putting out there is going to have a huge effect on how we end up using them. So I think we're going to be seeing more of kind of VR being integrated into social media. YouTube's already started doing it with live concerts and kind of be there in the crowd kinds of experiences, and I think that's going to start permeating social media more and more within the content side of things as well. And then there's loads at play with AI as well.
Yeah,
AI bots. I find it absolutely fascinating that can we get a bit of AI to replicate human behaviour, or can we use AI bots to start scraping data from social media so we can start learning even more about human interaction or information around the world. So there's lots of exciting things. I think it's difficult because it's a lot of big things that doesn't necessarily right now see how we affect individual users. But the technology's there, and it's going to very exciting places.
Yeah, I think for me it excites me. There's probably aspects that's going, but as a whole it excites me because it's more opportunities. I like to adapt, so as long as you're not willing to stick to the current regimes and adapt to what goes on, then I think it's nothing but opportunity and fun.
Very much
so it excites me. Well, thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure, and I've learned so much from you, and I'm sure they have as well. So is there any sort of last things you want to say to them, whether it's about online or sort of any sort of learning skills or anything you want to say to them?
Well, I mean, if you really enjoyed what we've talked about today and you feel like actually I would really like to learn more about social media generally, or I want to pick up some new digital skills, obviously you can come and find me and ask me questions on Twitter or Facebook, whatever. But there's also something called the Digital Garage from Google, which is a free online learning platform. If you just go to g.co/digital garage, get all words out right, and it's an online learning platform which you can just watch a whole series of videos, and it talks you through how to manage your social media, how to manage your email campaigns, how search engine marketing works. So much stuff on there that you can be learning for free, and that's a really great place to start if you're wanting to enhance your social media presence even more. And it's completely free, so you may as well fill your boots where you can.
Absolutely. Now I've gone through it myself. I got the certificate and I learned so much, and it is good because it starts from the basic, and then don't be confused by the words. I was a bit like SEO. I didn't really understand it all, but then it took me from the basics and it went up, and it gives you good examples. It gives you different situations, and that allowed me to learn it really well. And
it's created by Google as well, so all the information on there is going to be correct, it's going to be right, so you're well looked after with the Digital Garage.
Very credible. And you get a little certificate at the end.
You do, which you can actually put on your CV because it's an official qualification, which is recognised. So if nothing else, give your CV a boost.
Yeah, give your CV a boost, especially if you're looking for the digital area. So absolutely. Thank you very much, Becky. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
No problem.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was quite a fun one because I've not done such a direct one on social media, the space I'm in, so I really was excited for this one because I could speak to someone who really knows so much about social media. So this was a really exciting one, and I know it'll be an exciting one for you because you can really learn and take away this information and implement it for yourselves. As Becky said, if you've got any questions, please do reach out to Becky on Social Media Geek, and do reach out to me. I'll put all the links down below, both mine and Becky's, so you can contact either of us for any questions you have. As always, do please follow me and subscribe at ScottMears where you are now on the YouTube channel. Follow my Twitter at ScottMears_, my Facebook at ScottMears Entrepreneur. As always, guys, it was an absolute pleasure. Until next time, guys, see you then. Bye-bye.
Hi guys.